What happens to an abandoned stray? Watching your parental unit walk away, knowing and hearing that they want nothing to do with you, is a feeling I wish on no one. After I was dropped off at Dad's work, I sat in the tool crib he worked in for the rest of his shift. We headed home to Grandma's house a few hours later. On the way, we discussed what had happened and tried to come up with a reason for this reaction. I had no idea, and Dad didn't either. When we got to the little three-bedroom house my grandma lived in, we realized I had no clothes or personal belongings. I tried calling Mom to see if we could come get some of my things, but she would just hang up on me. Dad said not to worry, and that we would go get stuff on Monday from the thrift stores in Salt Lake City. I don't think I slept much that night, but I did sleep all the next day. I was emotionally empty. I felt like one of those little dogs you see on the Humane Society commercials with the Sarah McLachlan song in the background. Just lost. It took a month or two before I got any of my belongings from my mom's house. I wasn't allowed there anymore. I tried, one night after football practice, to ask her in person for my belongings while we were dropping my siblings off. While I was standing in the doorway of the house in all my football safety pads and with friends under the wraparound porch watching from the shadows as witnesses, my mother lifted her knee to my groin, hard, swift, and with the purpose of keeping me out of her house. It didn't hurt as bad as it could have. Dad made me wear a protective cup. It was mandatory for me to play football. It was worth every penny we paid for it at this very moment. So I gave up trying to get my things from her. She moved to Texas or New Mexico before school started again and left all my things in the storage room on the top of the shelves I helped my dad build over the years in that basement, obviously topped up there to be forgotten about, without a care for whose it was. That summer before she moved with my siblings, our cousins came to visit. All four of us were at Grandma's house. It was Dad's weekend for visitation. My mom called on Saturday and said that the cousins we rarely got to see were in town for a visit and wondered if we wanted to come say hi for a few hours. We were obviously a yes and just had to call Dad while he was working overtime to see if it was okay. Of course, he said yes, and we started to get dressed for the visit. Mom pulled up in that little green car she had, and my siblings and I rushed out the door to greet our cousin Amy that had come with my mom. We gave hugs and said goodbye to Grandma and headed to get loaded up in the car. My three siblings crawl in the back seat and strap into the belts. As I hesitate for 2 seconds, figuring out where I was to sit, my mom says, "Sorry, I don't have enough seat belts," gets in the driver's seat and pulls away. I stood there on the side of the road until I couldn't see the car anymore and turned toward the house. Grandma, standing in the door to her home, opened her arms to me. I ran to her and let her hold me. Neither of us said anything for a minute. I just went upstairs and laid down. That was the last time I saw my cousin Amy. She committed suicide a few months later from her own demons. I stopped talking to my mom for a while after this, for a long time actually. About 2 years after my parents' separation, Dad started looking for a house to buy and move out of Grandma's. We spent a few weekends for a couple months driving around and looking at properties. We checked options of moving off grid at one point, if I remember right. It was always Dad's dream to live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. We found a little two-bedroom, 1 3/4 bath house about 30 minutes away in a town a little bigger than where I grew up. It needed a lot of work. It was rough, but he got a good price on it and we moved in. We started working on it right away. The rooms we didn't have anything in, which was about all but the bedrooms we worked on first. We peeled up carpet, drywall, wallpaper, more drywall, more wallpaper, more drywall, more wallpaper, more drywall. Then we hit logs, 8 inches wide and 12 inches tall. There was a cutout for a window, but it was in the middle of the house. Old oiled rags were stuffed and nailed into the gaps between the wood. There were newspaper sheets and pieces stuck to the back of the drywall and to the face of the wood. We started to realize we just found some history. There were newspaper headlines reading, "Nazi Germany invades Poland," and many, many more. The oldest piece we found was dated 1904. It was cool to literally peel the history from the walls of this old house and hear it tell its story. We found out that the original portion of the home was a log cabin, and we found the hand-laid rock and stone foundation under the original portion of the home still there. When we started on the floors, we uncovered an original oak, hand cut and laid wood floor. It was in rough shape. It had been covered over by linoleum and carpet over the years, but it was an original part of the house, and we did everything we could to restore it. Day after day, on my hands and knees, sanding and checking, sweeping and cleaning dust, buffing and polishing, sealing and waterproofing until that floor was as level and shiny as we could get it. It was a work of art, to say the least. The more we remodeled the place, the more I fell in love with it. It was still a dump when I moved away from Utah. Dad got older and really just let the place go. But this was my castle when I was a teen. It was my domain, my creation. A lot of my happiest memories happened living in this home. I got to help design, build, shape, and plan every inch of the house with Dad. We took the newspaper clippings, found an old antique wood window frame with the glass still intact, and framed up the old yellow paper bits. We mounted it in the original window frame of the log cabin portion of the house. It hung there until he moved, but I don't know if he took it or if he left it. I just know I asked for it before he died, and I'll never see it again. It was about this time that I pierced my tongue, with a friend's help, of course. We took an apple, a hypodermic syringe needle, and a hammer to do the deed. We cut the apple in half, and I kneeled in front of my bathroom counter, set the bare flesh of the fruit face up on the counter, laid my wet, pulsating tongue on the apple, and closed my eyes. My friend, Bree, set the tip of the needle on my tongue, the cold surgical stainless tip resting ever so slightly on the main mouth muscle. Of course, I was tense. She tells me I needed to relax. I close my eyes and take a big deep breath in. Before I could exhale, she was giggling. It worked. It worked. It worked? Wait, what? You didn't think it would work? I spit through the gleaming needle through my tongue. It worked great, actually. The needle was through, but I noticed one problem. How was I supposed to get the barbell into the hole? On a needle at a piercing shop, there's a threaded end that you screw the jewelry on and continue pulling the needle through until it's clear of the exit, and you can unthread it and pull the ball on the end of the barbell. This needle didn't have that. We had to carefully try and line the tip of the barbell on the tip of the needle as we pulled it back through the hole in my tongue. My friend and I did this when we did mine, she said confidently. Well, it didn't work. She ended up spending what felt like hours swirling the threaded tip of the barbell around inside my tongue to find the opening in the top of the muscle. My mouth was on fire. My tongue swelled up to about 3 times the normal size. I, for some odd reason, didn't think there would be much to heal by piercing your tongue. I mean, I was 16. I knew everything. It took about 6 weeks to fully heal, with precise cleaning habits and paranoid chewing. I was only able to hide it from Dad for about 5 days. He decided the swelling and torture of not being able to eat much, or what I enjoyed as often, was punishment enough. I learned lessons the hard way, I guess. Before my class graduated, I ended up with a total of 6 piercings. I took the nipples out because they were taking longer than I wanted to heal. The Prince Albert came out before I got it all the way through. That's a story on its own. Every time I went out to visit Dad after I moved out, he needed help with some project he was doing. I helped him repaint the house inside and out, haul, move, and place rocks for a patio and fire pit out in the backyard, cut wood for his winter stove, work on the car, work on the house, the shed, cut and stack more wood, and on and on. It felt to my wife that Dad would only invite us to come visit if we had something he needed help to do. Looking back now, that was probably the case. But all I was doing was caring for the home that I said I wanted to raise my family in after he passed. I took pride in what I did there.